All right, so we're back. Another week down. This is the Two Kings Challenge. I'm Frank McFarland here with Brian King.
Hey guys.
Um, it's starting to feel like we're getting more in the groove of this thing. And I think there's definitely momentum. There's some traction there, I think, on both sides that's happening. Maybe a little bit different from the more negative view that I had going into last week. So a lot of exciting things to talk about. I think we decided today we're going to talk about the people and the places, and two of the most important things, and really valuing which one is more important and what people are the most important and everything else that goes in to not just our decisions on Charlotte and Asheville, but kind of where we start new places and what the model looks like moving forward.
Yeah, good morning, Frank. I'm really pumped up about it. I know we're going to start with people. Last week I reported that I might have a lead. I have pursued that lead pretty detailed over some time after being kind of contacted out of the blue, and I'm really excited about it. We've shared some vision. We've done some things like that, but like a lot of these things, there's contracts and things like that that have to be dealt with. I didn't realize growing up that watching sports and the Atlanta Braves and the Carolina Panthers and all the teams that I supported, that I was learning a lot about what business would be like. I think that that's sort of the context still that I think about it. The practice of law was very much like a sports team. And I feel like that's sort of what it is. You put it together, and basically, if you think of it more like a baseball team or something like that, you have a new crop of rookies that come out each year from the law schools. It's a little bit bizarre in that the state bars have 2 times a year that they do exams. So you've got your much like sports, you have your draft in September, and then you have your the supplemental draft in February that comes around with a few less bar takers. And you can either homegrown your talent, you can recruit, while they're in law school, even before, in some cases for us, all the way through, trying to add free agents. And what I've tried to do is do a little mix with Asheville, and I'm hoping I can announce a new team member next week, as soon as we get him out of his agreements that he's in currently, and be able to put that together. And I think that it's going to make a good team with Victoria and Jeannie that we've already kind of put there. Things have been going really busy there, like you said, and there's a lot of exciting things to do. But I thought maybe it'd be good to talk about, how do we assess talent? How do we make this kind of decisions? So tell us a little bit about what you're seeing on your side.
Yeah, I mean, it took us all of less than 2 minutes for you to give a sports analogy today. So I know that is probably going to be, when we talk about people, it's so easy to do because there's so many comparisons. One of the things that may be different in an office like Asheville that is versus what we're looking at in Charlotte is there's much more of a money ball, kind of approach that we're having to take in Charlotte. There's not those constant cases coming in. It's really more building it up and where can we get the most out of our resources. There have been some points that have happened on that front. One of the most exciting ones for me is, at least the possibility, and I know there's still details to work out there too, but that we have had an intern that's been with us now, I think at least longer than a summer. I don't know if it was 2 summers or not, but spent a lot of time with us that we've hired for this coming bar session later in the year. But because of a lot of the remote work that's going on with law school right now and the ability to do that, it has opened up some doors in terms of getting a little more work in. We probably, at least from a legal research standpoint, have raised the bar a little bit there in Charlotte, I think, on what we're going to be able to do in our case manager role. And I think will be great experience for her as she transitions in. And then, obviously that's another piece ultimately that I think will be a big part of Charlotte as we look, not necessarily tomorrow or a month from now or, in the time of this challenge, but I think if you say 5 years from now, what does our Charlotte office look like? I could definitely see her being a big piece of what, that growth and trajectory looks like. So an exciting piece there. That was a big thing that has happened since, the last time that we spoke. And, on another front too, I had a fantastic sit down with one of our associates who lives in the Charlotte market last Friday. She's working out of our Shelby office currently. Law is a second career, maybe even a third career. She's been successful in a lot of walks of life otherwise. And I just had it was one of those moments for me that was another, kind of reinvigoration of this. And it was a way for me to be motivated again this week to do this when it's not always easy. And then, on top of that, what we ended up with this week, I think, and I haven't had a chance to check in with Tom again on this yet, but I think he's been slammed with Charlotte, Mecklenburg County court cases all week. So a lot of really exciting parts to that. And I think it shows that we're getting some traction, including one of what I think is, one of the most promising things that I've heard this week, which was that one of those new clients actually came from a TikTok video. So, that it kind of made all that time spent worth it too. So, the people, at least as it relates to Charlotte, I think are close to being in place. I think we have a lot of those pieces there to grow there, and what those pieces look like and when we're ready to add another one, I think is going to be the biggest question for Charlotte.
Yeah, I really believe that the quest for talent. I mean, everybody's in it. We're not just against other law firms. We're against the entire corporate world out there in terms of trying to hire and find the best people. And I think as companies are realizing out there that lawyers also make good employees in other areas, you get a sense of when you have a good candidate, you want to do everything you can do to recruit them in. And then, of course, at the case manager level for us, which is so important, there's so many options for people to be able to work who may have the skills to be a good case manager. Most likely, they could work in any accounting firm. They could work in any corporate office. They could probably do sales with Fortune 500 companies. These are the same people we're after. So, it's so important to be able to say, okay, what is going to put together a team? And, for me, it's exactly what you were talking about. It's that conversation. I mean, one of the things I've always admired, even back from your days as an intern yourself, you've always been good at that sort of coffee talk and being able to sit down with people and be able to say hey, tell me what's going on in your life, and know how to get them motivated, try to find out what's the impediments that person has, and what you're able to see what they can be. It's very impressive. I think it's one of your best talents. I think that's really important, because what we try to do is make sure that everybody understands our purpose. What is our purpose? What is your purpose in that larger piece of the pie? When I go and talk to somebody about, hey, let's talk about asphalt and what our plans are, and start mirroring back, okay, these things could be together. And then, to hear well, what about this as a practice area? Hadn't really thought about that. Let's talk about that. What would that look like? And we have the benefit of having such a large footprint across North and South Carolina that, geography, when you're going to hire somebody, has an impact. But it also It can be, hey, look, we cover an area of many millions of people, especially when you throw in the Charlotte, Greenville markets, the Asheville markets, the Hickory markets, the things that are for in the Carolinas, big, the largest markets in those states that we have a chance to touch. Um, and I think that we can be able to vision plan with that person. If we can connect that purpose, then it starts getting everybody on the same page. It gets that motivation done. And then you just got to sit back and listen. And most of the time, that's what we are doing when we're building our team, is trying to listen, not just listen to the new people we're recruiting, but our people on our team, to say like, hey, this is what I think we want. This is what we think we need. And I wish there was a shortcut for it. I wish that there was a way to be able to say like, okay, well, I'm going to spend 10 hours this week on human resources, and I'm going to get a full office taken care of. And it just doesn't work that way. And building that team, every time there's a something good happens in an office, you want to celebrate that. When things go wrong, you want to be able to be there for each other, and that team develops as it goes. So strong, feel that way. For me, when I'm doing my planning for Asheville, I'm not thinking about the 90 days. Obviously, I want to make sure things are tied in for this time period as we go through this process. But I'm thinking about, like you said, what's that 10-year look? When you're looking at the person you are, who is in law school, but just had that instantaneous charisma, knowledge, confidence, that you think, hey, this is a person who I'd like to make a partner at this firm. She's going to make our firm better. Then you want to be able to take like, okay, well, if that's my goal line, what do I need to be able to do to get it there? For us, our recruiting process is with attorneys starts very early. For me, it's a LinkedIn. I try to catch up with our top 5 law schools, and I try to connect with as many of students as possible out of that, and then use that LinkedIn to start putting out as much information as I can for law students. And so that recruiting, we've already planted some seeds, so when we go and do our recruiting, that we have a good vast bit of people to look from. For us, we like to make sure that anybody who has connections to areas where we already have a established practice, that's going to put you high on our list in terms of that. We're looking, of course, for some level of law school success, but we assume a certain amount of law school success out of everybody that's in law school. What we're looking for are what sets you apart. It might be something on your resume that says, hey, I delivered pizzas at Domino's during my 1L year. Well, that would catch my attention. Wait a second, nobody works during their 1L year, and you delivered pizza? Tell me what motivated you? What made you realize, while everybody else was studying the library, you were out delivering pizza. So how did you survive and do the extra things you had to do? Maybe they know a language, if they know Portuguese. Wait a second, how did they know Portuguese? Those are the kind of things we like to see. And of course, if they have sales experience or server experience in a restaurant, we know that they've dealt with clients that are upset, and you're just not prepared for that kind of stuff in law school. So those are some of the things that we look for when we're doing our recruiting.
Yeah, I think there is so many different, just like, I think when we said like, hey, let's talk about people, you don't really think about all the subcategories that could go into that. And I think that's a lot of really good points about what we see. Like we do tons of interviews, I would imagine there's not many that do more, probably too many sometimes. Kind of constantly going through these things, dealing with, hearing those questions with law school students. But, I think you've got kind of this human resources component to dealing with people. And I think that is probably one of in the time that I've been, on the management team, I would say that the way that we deal with those human resources issues in particular, that's probably been among the biggest changes. And COVID led to some of that and kind of forced a lot of decisions on, hey, what are we doing about people being in office, and what are we doing about kind of had to make these policies that maybe weren't a thing before, that you're spending more time in, these issues. But that I think probably brings up a point that's worth making, considering this week. We are planning to implement a new software program there. I don't know if software program is the right way to describe that, but a new program that we are using, which I think I want to make sure I get. It's track. I know there's like 3 different names to it, but TrackStar I think is the overall part of that program, which is it's a little bit separate for the human resources arm. We're hoping that it'll kind of be a one-stop shop for a lot of the things that we want to do in terms of our training, hiring, kind of all of the above. But I think one thing that is definitely easy to realize is that as we grow, that's impossible to do on a one-on-one basis. That's not something that can be done that way. And a lot of times we just run into problems when we do. So when dealing with people, I think, you talked about some of the things that like you think are strengths of mine, and I appreciate that. And I kind of agree with you. I think that like dealing with people in those kind of situations is a positive, but you go through these, when you're trying to wear these hats, and when those hats change, it does become more and more difficult to have the same type of relationships. I just went through that in one of our other offices of this kind of like, how do I take this sort of, like I'm connecting with you on an individual one-on-one level, and then really do some managing or really do some leading, in that. And it's delicate because I don't know that you can be close with everyone. I'm pretty confident that you can't. And I think when you get to the point where you're close to being close with everyone, then you may actually be close to no one. So it's, it's one of those things that I think circles back around. And one of the difficult parts, and I would say that when we're dealing with people in those interactions, there's at least 3 different hats that I think happen in those. And I would say it's closer to 4. And this is kind of my own take on a lot of the different books and things that we've read. But you've got kind of this coaching aspect. You've definitely got more of a managing aspect, which I think is hopefully part of what, we're hoping to bring through, having a program with a facilitator that does a lot of that stuff, so it's not, it doesn't necessarily feel as micromanaged, but it also doesn't feel maybe as loose as, hey, yeah, just, kind of, hey, we're doing this today, or, is it okay if I take off a few, hours early or whatever? Those things that may be fine. It's just putting that like, kind of umbrella over everybody, so that it's a universally used thing. But then there's also a mentoring side. And then I kind of add one that I would say is just like leading. Like, leading is very close to coaching, I think, but it's so much different in the way that messages are perceived. So at least in my mind, that's the way that I view those in terms of a breakdown. But maybe a little down a rabbit hole, but I think that this topic is one that we're dealing with people, whether it's Charlotte, Asheville, new office we're opening, established office with 5 attorneys, 2 attorneys, whatever it is. Those are the interactions that you're dealing with. And then, figuring out who wants to be where and how we're going to make all these pieces fit, and, all those things that we deal with both in Charlotte and in Asheville that also apply everywhere. So I think that topic is one that we probably could do a whole lot more on, at some point, but I agree with you. I agree with you on all of those parts and how this sort of fits into the greater scheme.
Yeah, it's so difficult because you want to grow, but every time you grow, it becomes a different challenge. I can't even imagine what it must be like for these guys that start a company in their garage, and 10 years later, they're a multi-billion-dollar company. I was just looking at when I was typing in to do this meeting on Zoom, it still kind of pops out like, hey, Zoom's a business. It opened in 2011, and here's what it is. It's worth $3.2 billion in 2022 while we're doing this video. And you just think like, what it must be like to go from I'm involved in this, I'm putting this together, to, hey, I'm now, we're getting bigger. I don't really know all the people we're hiring, to, I can't possibly understand the context of the product that I've helped put together. And I think that we've sort of seen that. And I think every person goes through that growth. That's why I think we love this kind of challenge so much, because it gets us back to the basics of what it's like to, just put together on a very small scale, on one office at a time, what it's like, because it can mirror itself over so many more times. And it's why people are so important, because yeah, you cannot have that personal relationship with everybody, but you can have a personal relationship with one, and that one can have a personal relationship with those others. And you want that relationship to be mirrored back down and up, and all the different directions that our team members work. I want to talk just briefly about the facilities, because it's top of mind for me in Asheville. We have currently we have a office that is adequate spaced. It's got 3 office areas. One of those we use as a conference room, and an upfront area, and a small waiting room for people. So it's a small office, and much like your Charlotte office has shared restroom facilities with other organizations on the hall. You have to go upstairs to get there, or an elevator option. It's just a first floor kind of situation for me in Asheville. It is not easy to find. It is one of those that if we give directions, I don't think we have much trouble with that. I don't think people get lost or confused as to where we are, but it's not necessarily highly visible. It is about 10-minute drive to the courthouse, probably during lunch traffic. You can add that up to 15. It's if you're familiar with Asheville, if there wasn't buildings and trees, you'd be looking just about squarely at the Biltmore House. It is right off of the beautiful Blue Ridge Parkway, which is a fantastic drive for any of you ever get a chance. One of the most visited areas in the United States. And Asheville is it's also near a private school, one of the top private schools in Asheville, and it is conveniently located just a quarter mile away from 2 Starbucks in either direction. So those are all pieces of what we have in Asheville. The question is that this growth that we have in mind, that if I get the acceptance that we have already, when we add an associate in the fall, we are going to be too big for our current location. So we're either going to have to negotiate with the landlord to step up and maybe add some space. And we are surrounded on all sides currently by businesses that are operating. Or we're going to do some hunting down some new space. Fortunately for the 2 of us, we have great people that are part of that at King Law, that we don't have to necessarily be involved in. But we are contemplating making that a full-time position, not just a team-based one, but to have a full-time position to deal with facilities issues. Frankly, I'd be really happy to get that off of our backs, because it's such a balance. And when we put together an office, and we've done this many times, we try to think of it from the standpoint of the client's perspective. What is convenient for that client? What is parking going to look like? What is access going to look like? What's that moment going to look like when they walk into the office? How welcoming is it going to be? We have a lot of different kind of communities. We have, in Charlotte, where you are, we have certain a corporate feel to it, and those things. I'll let you speak as to that. But then we have our Polk County office, which is sort of mirrored more on a coffee shop look than anything else. What are we trying to do and piece together to make an office really look like something inviting, that you want to be there, you want to be able to spend some time there, and ultimately feel comfortable spending your money there, because things are taken care of. That's facilities for us, and I don't think we ever buy a place or rent a place or enter into a lease before when we don't at some point say we should have gotten something bigger.
Yeah, and I want to touch on this just briefly because, and to do it and kind of summarize it quickly, because it may be a bigger topic also, but we have made the decision, and I think it's the right one for us, basically. There are a lot of people that right now would say, look, it's 2022, we're coming out of COVID, there's so much remote side of this. Why would you be spending money to get a bigger office? Why would that be something that you do? The office space doesn't have to grow. You can grow that way without growing that space. I think that it's one of those things that, is still going to be a finger on the pulse issue. And I think it's one that probably a lot of people are asking, whether it's a law firm or whatever kind of business or industry that you're in, is this kind of brick and mortar space, still needed? And how much is it needed? And I think that what we have seen is, for us at least, I think one of the benefits we have had for, really since COVID is that we kept the doors open more than most people did. We are available more than most people are. So at least right now, I think that's a cognizant decision that, hey, this is where we need to go. And it's certainly not something that we envision changing tomorrow. But I did want to just briefly note that, because I think that's a topic that a lot of people are dealing with and kind of why we decided the way we did. But then on top of that, to circle back to Charlotte, we've touched on this a little bit, but like where we're at in Charlotte is, it's a nice space. There's really two large size offices. There's a conference room that's another large size office. And then there's a little smaller office that can be of use, and then kind of an entranceway and a little hallway that's spaced out there. So the space is great. The location is incredible. It's walking distance from the courthouse. It's, you can see the Spectrum Center. Is that what?
Yeah,
what's the name of it?
Currently the Spectrum Center. Yes.
Okay. Weirdly enough that it's named that, but anyway,
Yes.
You've got the basketball arena that's right outside the window there where the Hornets play. Great location. It really is. The building's fantastic. The entranceway, there's, you got a big fountain. Everything just looks very, very professional. And that's the feel that we want. I think everybody's really pleased with that location. And honestly, price-wise, it was more reasonable than probably we would have expected for a similar, type location. So everything is really solid there. The question, though, I think, size-wise there, like if we outgrow that space, then what is our next solution? And I think that's a debate that will probably carry on until that lease is up, because, the question will, I think, remain of, is Charlotte itself the right place, or is there, one of these kind of outlier areas? I think I'm in agreement that Charlotte is the location right now, but one of the main reasons for that is that, you think about these suburbs as potential cheaper options, or places where you could create a niche, like Belmont or Davidson or, Cornelius, or all these areas that are kind of around. There's hundreds. I mean, there's just so many. But those are growing areas too. So, it's not like you're getting like this dirt cheap, rental space right now, not in this market, or purchasing space. So I think all those things factor in, but I think that's a continued discussion on the where in Charlotte. But right now, I mean, I couldn't be happier with our location there. And I think it's really going to be the type to attract. I think it's really just, how does that balance with the people, and not the people that are working with us, but the people that we're trying to bring in. And it is a different market. It is very different people that we're selling services to in Charlotte than the people that we're selling services to, in Rutherfordton or Columbus or Marion or, these other office locations. So I think what we've got is a location that caters to that. And it's really just figuring out how to get more of them in the door to see it, so. And I think that the other thing that I would say on that front too is, and it may be something to experiment with in Asheville, I have a belief, I don't know that I have anything other than my own personal opinions to back this, But I think that people in Charlotte, more so than the smaller markets we're in, want to be met on the medium that they're at. They're busy, they're working through the day. There are more people there that have, less ability to take a 2-hour lunch to go meet with a lawyer or to do these things. So I think we need to be more flexible there. And I think I'm trying to work through a plan on that too, to say, when can we meet with these people after hours? When can we meet with these people early in the morning? When can we meet with these people, more, it's one of those things that we've talked about before. Some like Clio uses, or has the ability to schedule appointments, virtually. Is that something that makes more sense for Charlotte than it does for some of our other offices? Are there text consults? Like these questions that I think are bigger, kind of legal topics as a whole that become much more relevant in Charlotte. And would we want to do it? Do we want to change the model for a specific location because of that? I think deciding all those things is going to be important. But I do think that the flexibility on scheduling is one that I'm going to, try to work through, and even include some time on my own calendar to say, hey, this is when I can do it. It works for me. If I have medical appointments and there's a provider that offers 6 a.m. televisits, it's a no-brainer for me. I don't have to think any more about it. That is like, that decision is made. The ones that you can schedule online also, that works too. I will go even when I normally wouldn't because of the ability to do that. So I think there are a lot of things to consider, and whether that starts in Charlotte or wherever. I think this is all changes in the market and things to explore. But just kind of where we're at on that front, and kind of in thinking through this in our 90-day plan, and through a lot of different things out there today. But just I think that's sort of where we're at, still in exploration mode. It's time to get kind of get on the grind a little more too.
I love it. I love the idea of it. And it's frustrating to me that if Great Clips can figure out how to do it in a very simple manner, why can't we do it as in a law firm and that kind of setting? Those are fantastic stuff for me. I think, like you said at the beginning, I think we're both pumped up. Just a couple of clearinghouse kind of stuff that's going on. We made a big point. We came in with 37 reviews on Google for King Law Asheville. 3 of them were 1 star. So we were like, well, how did this happen? What happened with these ones? So, even though it was a 4.7 rating, we wanted to get that thing to a 5.0 if we could. So we have done some hunting down, and I think we got 1 of them removed already. So we're doing our best to try to get rid of the sins of our forefathers in what we're trying to put together. So odd in a family law setting that, yeah, you're going to get people that are upset, usually not your client, other people that are going to have issues, or, oddly, people who are just like, well, I can't afford a lawyer, so I'm going to 1-star you. Those kind of things have been a point of emphasis. And then just trying to organize our work that geographically, a lot of stuff was kind of haphazard across the office, and so like, hey, let's get the work done if we can, or at least get it centralized near the person where they are, because like I said, during COVID, everything's been so remote, and I don't think that it's something that we have to necessarily do, but we'd like to be able to say like, hey, to our people who are already clients to us in the Nashville area, we want to be able to reach out and just remind you can get your services done virtually like you always have been. That's not a problem, but we are right here too, and sometimes a little personal touch doesn't hurt.
No question. Well, we are bumping right up against our 8 o'clock time. We got started a little bit later this morning, but I think that'll do it for this week. And then maybe, I think it's probably worth circling back on some of these issues. I think there's a little more we can flesh out next week too. So we'll definitely touch on some of these topics again. I think there's a couple updates that we might be able to give next week as well that are optimistic. So that's it for this week, and I hope some of you enjoyed or got some benefit out of tuning in.